full to the inspector.
And when you hear why he was shut down, you will too. Here's Local 10 News investigator Jeff Weitz here with tonight's Dirty Dining Report.
That salad you just ordered could send you to the hospital tonight. 6 major restaurant chains are making customers sick right now, and the latest outbreak just claimed another victim last week. These aren't random food trucks or sketchy diners. These are billion-dollar brands you trust with your family's health every single day. Starting with number 6, this bowl just arrived from Australia and exploded on social media as the healthy fast food everyone was waiting for. Beautiful bowls, fresh ingredients, lines out the door in New York City. But something went seriously wrong in July. Customers started flooding TikTok with warnings about getting violently ill after eating there. One person ended up hospitalized. Then Grub Street launched an investigation and discovered dozens of food poisoning complaints, all pointing to the same problem: undercooked salmon. Here's what makes this terrifying. This bowl built their entire business model on speed. Get people in, build their bowl, get them out. That assembly line pressure means workers are rushing through prep, and when you're dealing with raw fish, every second of proper handling matters. The salmon sits out during prep, gets touched by multiple hands, crosses paths with other ingredients. If that fish isn't stored at exactly the right temperature, if someone forgets to check the thermometer, if a new employee doesn't follow protocol, you're eating a bacteria bomb disguised as a health bowl. The worst part is how this spreads through social media versus reality. You see these gorgeous bowls on Instagram, perfectly arranged, colorful vegetables, that pink salmon glistening on top. What you don't see is the temperature log showing that fish sat in the danger zone for 3 hours. You don't see the teenage employee who got minimal training handling your raw protein. You don't see the health inspector who hasn't visited yet because it's a new location. Raw fish requires military precision to serve safely. The temperature has to stay below 41 degrees Fahrenheit at all times. The cutting boards need sanitizing between each use. The storage needs separate containers to prevent cross-contamination. Workers need to wash hands constantly. One slip anywhere in that chain, and you're breeding salmonella, listeria, or worse. When restaurants prioritize Instagram aesthetics over food safety basics, customers pay the price with their health. The grab-and-go model that this bowl pioneered makes contamination even more likely. Traditional sushi restaurants have dedicated prep areas, specialized refrigeration, and chefs who train for years. This bowl throws that out the window for assembly line efficiency. Your salmon gets prepped in bulk during morning rush, sits in containers all day, gets scooped by workers handling 20 other ingredients. Each transaction multiplies contamination risk exponentially. Think about the journey your salmon takes before hitting your bowl. It arrives at the restaurant in bulk packages, gets portioned by whoever's available, sits in metal containers that may or may not maintain proper temperature, gets exposed to air every time the lid opens, accumulates bacteria from serving utensils that touch multiple portions. By lunchtime, that fresh salmon has more handling history than a library book. Moving to number 5, Panda Express in Lancaster, California, created a Hepatitis A nightmare that should terrify anyone who eats fast food. In August 2023, health officials discovered that an infected food handler had been working while contagious for 2 entire weeks. Every single customer who ate there during that window got exposed to a virus that attacks your liver. Let me explain what hepatitis A actually does to your body. This virus spreads through microscopic fecal particles. Yes, you read that correctly. When an infected person doesn't wash their hands properly after using the bathroom, those invisible particles transfer to food, surfaces, utensils, everything they touch. Once you swallow contaminated food, the virus invades your liver cells and starts destroying them. You'll experience extreme fatigue, jaundice where your skin turns yellow, dark urine, clay-colored stools, and abdominal pain that makes you want to curl up and die. The county had to issue an emergency vaccination advisory. Think about that. One restaurant created such a massive public health threat that medical officials scrambled to inject thousands of people with vaccines to prevent an epidemic. Customers who thought they were grabbing quick orange chicken for lunch ended up in vaccination lines, praying they weren't infected. This wasn't some random accident either. Hepatitis A outbreaks in restaurants follow a predictable pattern. Employees can't afford to miss work when they're sick. Managers pressure them to show up anyway. Hand washing stations get ignored during rush hours. That quick rinse under cold water doesn't kill viruses. Those thin food service gloves that rip constantly don't create magical barriers against contamination. Here's the truly scary part. Hepatitis A has an incubation period up to 50 days. You eat contaminated food today and feel fine for over a month. Then suddenly you're in the emergency room with liver failure, and you can't even remember what you ate that made you sick. By the time symptoms appear, you've potentially spread it to your family, co-workers, everyone you've shared food with. The vaccination emergency created chaos beyond the immediate health threat. Parents had to pull kids from school for shots. Workers missed shifts, waiting in vaccine lines. The local health system got overwhelmed processing thousands of potentially exposed people. Insurance companies fought coverage battles over preventive vaccines, all because one sick employee couldn't afford to stay home. Restaurant workers face impossible choices every day. Call in sick and lose wages you need for rent, or work through illness and risk infecting hundreds. The food service industry's lack of paid sick leave creates public health disasters. That Panda Express employee probably knew they were sick, but chose between their job and customer safety. Until restaurants provide proper sick leave, Hepatitis A outbreaks will keep happening. Number 4 brings us to Golden Corral in Joplin, Missouri, where inspectors found a buffet of health code violations in June 2025. Hazardous foods sitting above 41 degrees, ice building up in coolers, grime coating the dish machine hoods, broken floor tiles, and dirty wiping cloths thrown directly onto food racks. This wasn't just one bad day. This was systematic failure of basic food safety. Buffets operate on a dangerous edge, even in the best circumstances. You've got hundreds of people breathing over open food, reaching across dishes, kids sticking their hands directly into serving trays. The only thing preventing massive outbreaks is strict temperature control and constant cleaning. When those systems fail, you're creating a petri dish for bacteria growth. Let's talk about what happens when food sits in the danger zone between 41 and 135 degrees Fahrenheit. Bacteria doubles every 20 minutes at room temperature. That mac and cheese that's been sitting lukewarm for an hour, it now contains 64 times more bacteria than when it came out of the kitchen. That's not an exaggeration. That's basic microbiology. E. coli, salmonella, staphylococcus, they're all having a party in that buffet pan while you're loading up your plate. The ice buildup in coolers tells another story. When refrigeration units fail, they don't just stop cooling. They actively breed contamination. That ice melts during the day, creating pools of water that mix with food particles and create bacterial soup. Then it refreezes at night, trapping that contamination in layers. Every time the unit cycles, it's spreading those bacteria through air circulation onto every surface. Dirty wiping cloths on food racks might seem minor, but it's actually one of the most dangerous violations possible. Those cloths get used to wipe up spills, clean surfaces, handle messes all day long. They're basically bacteria collection devices. When you toss them onto racks where clean dishes or food containers go, you're contaminating everything that touches that surface. It's like wiping a toilet seat and then using the same cloth on your dinner plate. Golden Corral's business model depends on volume and variety. They promise endless options at budget prices. But maintaining safe temperatures across dozens of dishes requires expensive equipment and constant monitoring. When profit margins get squeezed, temperature logs get fudged. When labor costs rise, cleaning schedules get cut. The chocolate fountain might look indulgent, but it's recycling the same chocolate touched by hundreds of hands and whatever bacteria they carry. Consider the journey of a single serving spoon at a buffet. It starts clean in the morning, gets grabbed by customer after customer, accumulates bacteria from every hand, drops into food, gets retrieved and used again. Some customers lick their fingers before grabbing utensils. Others sneeze without covering. Kids touch everything. By evening, that spoon has become a disease transmission device, spreading whatever the sickest customer carried to everyone who follows. Number 3 takes us to IHOP in James Island, South Carolina, a franchise so filthy it earned 11 consecutive C grades before finally being shut down permanently in June 2025. Eggs stored at unsafe temperatures, pancake batter sitting at 57 degrees, flies buzzing through the dish area, spoiled meat held 2 weeks past expiration. This wasn't incompetence. This was complete abandonment of food safety. Breakfast foods create unique contamination risks because they involve so many temperature transitions. Eggs go from refrigerator to griddle to plate. Pancake batter sits in pitchers for hours. Butter stays at room temperature for easy spreading. Each of these transitions creates opportunities for bacterial growth, and when you're serving breakfast 24/7, there's never time to properly clean and reset. Eggs stored at unsafe temperatures become salmonella factories. The shells naturally carry bacteria from the chicken's digestive system. When eggs warm up, that bacteria penetrates through the porous shell into the white and yolk. Once inside, it multiplies exponentially. By the time that egg hits your plate as a sunny side-up special, you're eating millions of salmonella cells ready to attack your intestines. Pancake batter at 57 degrees is literally a biohazard. Raw flour can contain E. coli from contaminated wheat. Raw eggs add salmonella risk. Milk introduces listeria potential. When you combine all these raw ingredients and let them sit at perfect bacteria breeding temperature, you're creating a toxic cocktail. That fluffy pancake might taste normal, but your stomach will tell a different story in about 6 hours. The flies in the dish area reveal something even worse: complete breakdown of pest control. Flies don't just appear randomly, they breed in drains, garbage areas, and anywhere organic matter accumulates. When you see flies in a restaurant, it means there's rotting food somewhere they're feeding and laying eggs. Those flies land on your clean dishes, with feet covered in bacteria from garbage and feces. Every dish coming out of that area is contaminated before food even touches it. Spoiled meat held 2 weeks past expiration shows criminal negligence. Meat decomposition produces cadaverine and putrescine, toxic compounds that smell like death because they literally come from decay. When restaurants serve spoiled meat, they're not just risking food poisoning, they're serving actual poison. The bacteria count in 2-week-old meat reaches levels that cooking cannot make safe. No amount of heat kills the toxins already produced by bacterial growth. This IHOP location operated in a death spiral. Bad grades led to fewer customers, which meant less revenue, which justified cutting corners further. They stopped replacing equipment, ignored maintenance, skeleton crews couldn't keep up with cleaning. Each failed inspection made the next failure more likely. The franchise model that promises support and standards abandoned this location to its decay. Number 2 shocked the entire nation. McDonald's, the most successful fast food chain in history, poisoned customers across multiple states with contaminated quarter-pounder onions in October 2024. 104 confirmed E. coli infections, 34 hospitalizations, and 1 death. This wasn't some small franchise cutting corners. This was systemic failure at the corporate supply chain level. E. coli 157:H. 7 isn't your average stomach bug. This strain produces Shiga toxin that literally shreds your intestinal walls. Victims experience bloody diarrhea so severe they need transfusions. The bacteria can trigger hemolytic uremic syndrome, where your kidneys shut down and you need dialysis to survive. Children and elderly victims often suffer permanent organ damage. That 1 death? It represents unimaginable suffering that started with a simple burger order. The onions came from a centralized supplier that distributed to multiple states. This is the dark side of fast food efficiency. When everything comes from massive distribution centers, one contamination event spreads everywhere instantly. Those diced onions on quarter pounders in Colorado contained the same deadly bacteria as ones in Nebraska, Kansas, Wyoming, and beyond. Thousands of people eating at different locations on different days all got exposed to the same contaminated batch. Here's what McDonald's doesn't want you to think about. They built an empire on the promise of consistency. Every burger tastes the same because every ingredient follows exact specifications from approved suppliers. But that same system that ensures your fries taste identical in Tokyo and Toledo also means contamination spreads at lightning speed. There's no local sourcing to create fire breaks. When the system fails, it fails catastrophically. The investigation revealed terrifying details about produce handling. Those onions likely got contaminated with cattle feces during growing or processing. E. coli lives in cow intestines, and when runoff from feedlots contaminates irrigation water or processing equipment, it transfers to vegetables. The onions then get diced, packaged, and shipped, while bacteria multiplies in the sealed containers. By the time they reach restaurants, they're biological weapons. McDonald's response exposed corporate priorities. They pulled quarter-pounder onions only from affected regions initially, gambling that contamination stayed localized. More people got sick before they expanded the recall. They knew their supply chain created massive risk, but chose efficiency over safety redundancy. Every centralized decision that saves pennies per burger creates potential for widespread outbreak. The scariest part is how this keeps happening to McDonald's. In 2018, Cyclospora parasites in salads sickened hundreds. In 2019, more contaminated salads across multiple states. Each time, they promise enhanced supplier oversight and improved safety protocols. Yet their fundamental model of massive centralized production remains unchanged. They're optimizing for profit while customers optimize for not dying from dinner. Number 1 on our list is Chipotle Mexican Grill, and their July 2024 disaster in Powell, Ohio, proves they learned nothing from years of outbreaks. 647 customers got Clostridium perfringens poisoning from a single location. Nearly 700 people violently ill from wanting a burrito. This is the same company that paid $25 million in criminal fines for food safety violations in 2020. Clostridium perfringens is called the cafeteria germ because it thrives in large batches of food held at wrong temperatures. The bacteria forms heat-resistant spores that survive cooking. When food cools too slowly or sits warm too long, those spores germinate and produce toxins. Once you eat contaminated food, the bacteria continues producing toxins in your intestines, causing severe cramping and diarrhea that hits like a freight train. Chipotle's assembly line model creates perfect conditions for this bacteria. They cook massive batches of rice, beans, and meat in the morning, then hold them warm all day. If those steam tables drop below 135 degrees, if someone forgets to stir and create hot spots, if the closing crew doesn't cool leftovers quickly enough, you've got a C. Perfringens outbreak waiting to happen. This wasn't Chipotle's first failure or even their fifth. 2015 brought E. coli across 14 states. 2017 saw norovirus sicken customers and employees. 2018 added more Clostridium perfringens. Each time they promised comprehensive food safety reforms. They created fancy protocols, hired consultants, made training videos. Yet here we are in 2024 with 647 fresh victims asking themselves why they trusted Chipotle again. The Powell outbreak exposed a fundamental problem. Corporate policies mean nothing if individual stores don't follow them. That location had critical time and temperature failures. Food sat in the danger zone. Employees either weren't trained properly or ignored their training. Management either didn't notice or didn't care. Nearly 700 people paid the price for that negligence. What makes Chipotle especially dangerous is their fresh food marketing. They convinced millions that made to order means safer, healthier eating. But fresh ingredients require even more careful handling than frozen, pre-processed foods. Every lettuce leaf needs washing. Every tomato needs proper storage. Every batch of guacamole creates cross-contamination risks. When you multiply these risks across thousands of daily transactions, outbreaks become inevitable without obsessive attention to detail. Chipotle's open kitchen concept that's supposed to show transparency actually reveals the chaos. Watch them during a lunch rush. Employees scrambling to refill containers, same gloves touching multiple ingredients, spoons moving between bins, temperatures dropping as lids stay open. That theater of fresh preparation masks a system stretched beyond safe limits. Speed and safety cannot coexist when you're serving hundreds per hour. The financial penalties mean nothing to a company worth billions. That $25 million fine represents less than 1% of annual revenue. It's cheaper to pay fines than redesign their entire operation for safety. They budget for outbreaks like normal business expenses. Your intestinal suffering is an acceptable cost for their profit margins. Until penalties match the human damage, Chipotle will keep poisoning customers. Here's how you protect yourself and your family. First, always check restaurant inspection scores before eating anywhere. County health departments post these weekly on their websites. Anything below an A grade means serious violations. Second, watch those hot and cold holding temperatures. Hot foods must stay above 135 degrees, cold foods below 41 degrees. If buffet pans look lukewarm or salad bars feel warm, leave immediately. Third, avoid undercooked proteins unless you absolutely trust the source. That medium-rare burger or raw fish poke bowl might look appetizing, but it's gambling with your health. Fourth, when major chains announce outbreaks, assume contamination spread everywhere. Skip that menu item nationwide until officials declare it safe. Your craving can wait longer than your intestines can fight off E. coli. Pay attention to warning signs beyond official inspections. Sticky floors mean cleaning gets neglected. Overflowing trash suggests understaffing. Employees looking stressed or rushed indicates corners being cut. If the bathroom is filthy, imagine the kitchen. Your instincts exist for survival. Trust them over convenience or social pressure to stay and eat. Download your county health department's app or bookmark their website. Many update violations in real time. You can check scores while standing outside a restaurant. Some apps let you report problems immediately. Become an active participant in food safety instead of a passive victim. Your reports might prevent the next outbreak. Consider the time of day you're eating. Lunch rushes stress every system. Evening shifts often have less experienced staff. Weekend skeleton crews can't maintain standards. If you must eat at chain restaurants, choose off-peak times when workers can focus on safety over speed. That 2 p.m. lunch might save you from a 2 a.m. emergency room visit. These 6 restaurants represent billions in revenue and millions of customers, yet they still can't guarantee basic food safety. Your best defense is vigilance, knowledge, and the willingness to walk away when something seems wrong. That Instagram-worthy meal means nothing if you spend the next week in the hospital. Trust your instincts, check those scores, and remember that no restaurant is too big to fail at keeping you safe.